Gemara in Kesubos Daf Tes. We're holding in the bottom of Chof Chesam and Beis, on the last medium-sized line. We finished yesterday discussing the Birchas Havelim, the bracha made in the Rechava, the incredible story of the brachas that were said, the cancellation that was given to Rav Chia bar Abba. And now continues the Gemara on the last medium-sized line. We're about 8 lines to the bottom of Chesam and Beis. Amar Ula, first words on the line. Va'amrila Masnida Tana, another practice of the Beis Havelim that happened in the house of mourners. Asara Concise Chazal, the Chacham instituted 10 cups of wine that they would drink. What are these 10 cups of wine? Shleisha Kaidim Achila, 3 before the 8. Why? Open up their insides. Shleisha B'Seicha Achila, 3 in the middle of the meal, to absorb the food in their insides. V'arba Lacher Achila, and 4 after the meal. Echad Keneged Hazan, V'echad Keneged Birchas Haaretz, Echad Keneged Bani Yerushalayim, V'echad Keneged HaToiv HaMeitiv. So 10 cups of wine they would have. Now the Gemara continues. They add on another 4 cups of wine to those 10. Now they're drinking 14 cups of wine. One is for the attendants of the city. One is for the supporters of the town. And one is for Rav Gamliel. So all these different chasha people in their city, those who buried the dead, those that were involved in all the different portions, those who paid for the burial, they made a special cup of wine that everyone would drink in their honor. Says the Gemara, and finally they drink for Rav Gamliel. His chilu hayashaisin mishtakrin. Originally they would drink, they'd get drunk, 14 cups of wine. So what happened? They rolled the clock back. My Rav Gamliel says the Gemara, why do they drink a special cup of wine for Rav Gamliel? What did he do? With regard to Avelim, the expenses of the wedding were more crushing and more difficult than the death itself. How incredible. We know sometimes monetary obligations are difficult. But says the Gemara, the cost of the funeral is even greater and more difficult than the death itself. You know what they would do? They would leave the nifter, barchan, they would run away. They couldn't afford the actual burial. Achabar Rav Gamliel and said, this is ridiculous. When he made very, very big leniencies, and they carried him out in flax vessels. That's what they all did, saving themselves all that money, incredibly increasing the kavod hameis. And Amar Abav in bar Zuzah says Rabbi nowadays even use a word like canvas that's worth 1 zuz, says the Gemara, and that's why they had a special cup for Rav Gamliel, due to the fact that Rav Gamliel helped out all the Avelim. And that's the end of the sugya of this topic of the Birchas Havelim. And now we go all the way back to the beginning of the Masechta, a little bit more than a week ago, discussing the din of the Mishnah of Besula Neseis B'Yom HaRavi'i. Omar Rav Elazar, let's turn over to today's daf, and then we'll explain a little bit. Says Rav Elazar, if someone says Pesach Basuach, I found an opening, they are believed. Again, let's go back. Let's remind ourselves, why do they get married on a Wednesday? If the husband didn't find dam, the husband thinks he's marrying a basula, a virgin, a woman who's never married, so he thinks there should be dam, the classical dam basulim on the first act of intercourse, and there isn't. So we want them to get married on a Wednesday night so they could potentially go to Bezdin Thursday morning. Now says Rav Elazar a new din. Let's say they sleep together, and the husband says, 1 second, Pesach Basuach Matasi, a basula, the tashmish, the intercourse with a basula, with a virgin, is supposed to be the type that's supposed to be a tighter type of tashmish. But this husband says no. Pesach Basuach Matzasi, the tashmish felt like it was with a ba'ula, like it was with a woman that was already married. Said Rav Elazar, if their husband comes and says that, you know what the halacha is? Naaman, he is believed l'Isra love to make her forbidden to him. Now let's look at a little bit of Rashi before we go further in the Gemara. Rashi says in the top, Rashi, you know what's going on over here? He doesn't say anything about the blood. You know why? Because maybe it's coming from a family where there wasn't any blood, or maybe he lost the blood. Okay, but he says something else. He says, I know that the tashmish felt it wasn't a tight tashmish like a basula, rather the act of intercourse was Pesach Basuach. I found her to be opened. Says the Gemara Nemer La'Isra Love. Now Rashi explains, he's the only one that can tell us this, no one else knows. But Rashi says the critical words, he's believed unto himself Why? He makes her in something that is a piece of it, so this is forbidden to me. But to make her lose her ksuba, she's not believed. So Rashi speaks out the incredible din. Now what we mean to say over here is that the husband has a believability and emunah on himself. If he says, I know, no one else in the world knows, but I know that she wasn't a basula, he is believed unto himself. He's not believed not to pay her. With regard to monetary obligations, you have to give her a ksuba. Fine, but he's believed to say she must have had illicit relations, as we'll discuss in a moment, and therefore they are forbidden. But ask the Gemara 1 second. V'amai, why is he believed svek sveko? It's a classical, says the Gemara, svek sveka, a double doubt. And the Gemara explains, what would the reason be forbidden? As we explained back in Daf Beis, they did Erusin well before they did Nisuin. Their engagement wasn't a classical engagement, it was a real engagement of Erusin with Tanaim, and after that point, if she were to go and sleep with another man, she would be forbidden to her husband. That would be called Zinsa Tachtov. She was Mizana, she had illicit relations Tachtov while she was under her husband because he already had Harrison. So ask the Gemara, why is she forbidden to him? It's a Svek Sveika. Number one, we have no clue when. It's true, he came to Bezdin and said, Pesach, Pesuach, Matzasi, my wife, was not a Besula. I had Tashmish with her and I am clear and I know there was a different type of tashmish. She wasn't closed. I know it was Pesach Pesuach. It was an open door. She wasn't a virgin. But says Gemara, still your mutter. Why you mutter? Number one, Savik Tachtov, Savik Ein Tachtov. When did she have tashmish? Maybe she had tashmish before they had Erison. Maybe she had tashmish before they got married. As Rashi says, Kodim Shen Nis Arsa Zinsa. Number two, and if you're going to say no, it was that she was mizana while they had Erison. Safik ba'ines, safik beratzain. Says Rashi, what happens if it was ba'ines? What if someone was ma'anis her, someone raped her, was not consensual? The halacha is she does not become forbidden to her husband if someone is ma'anis her, even after Erison. So ask the Gemara, you, Rav Elazar, just taught us that if the husband comes in and says, Pesach Pesuach Matzasi, is believed the but says the Gemara, why? It's a svek sveka. Maybe it was before they did Erison, and even if you're going to tell me it was after they did Erison, but maybe it was through an act of Eines. Answers the Gemara, there's two answers. Beishes Kayin, number one, it can be an Eishes Kayin, which is a special halacha that even if it was ba'Eines, even if it was non-consensual, the halacha is she's still forbidden to her husband, as a Kayin. V'Baisema, answer number two, Beishes Yisrael. But you know what the case is? Where her father accepted the Kedushin, she was a very little girl, younger than 3. What does it mean, younger than 3? And therefore, the first suffix, what was the first suffix? Maybe she was mizana before they got married. But if she was 3 years old, it cannot have been before she got married, as Rashi speaks out, because if she were to have relations before she becomes of 3 years old, the Besulim come back, like Rashi says, like putting your finger in your eye, there's going to be some tears, but it's going to come back. So a girl less than 3 years old, if she was mizana, the Besulim will return. So therefore, it's no longer a double doubt, because on the first doubt, whether it was before Erison or not, it's not true. It had to have been afterwards if she doesn't have the Besul Men's Pesach Pesuach, because it would come back. Of course, the Metzias of a 3-year-old is always difficult. Says the Gemara, okay. So we have two ways of explaining the din of Rav Elazar, that when a husband says, I found my wife to be Pesach Pesuach, he's believed to make her Aser, either if she's an Eishes Kayin, or if she was married at age 3. Mike Kamashlan asked the Gemara, what's the Chiddush 7 lines down of Tesam and Aleph? Tani and learned in a rice. If someone says to a woman, I married you. You didn't marry me. You know what the halach is? She is mutter to his relatives. He's forbidden to her relatives. Why? Because he says, I married you. So ask the Gemara, what's the Chiddush you're telling me? A man is allowed to make someone into a piece of forbidden meat. He's allowed to say, you are usher to me. I know it was Pesach Pesuach. We know this thing already. Answers the Gemara, no. I would have thought, over there, he knows with 100% certainty he married that girl. So maybe that's when we say Shavya Nafshay. But in our case, make a mudlo kimle, he can't know 100%. Kamash Milan, that is the Chiddush says and of course he can't know 100%. Rashi here speaks out. The reason being because he's someone who was never previously married, and therefore it's impossible that he knows 100% what the act of tashmish should feel like. Says the Gemara, Omi Amar Rav Elazar Hachi. Oh, now we're going back. Fundamental. Rav Elazar said a man is believed to say this. Ask Gemara, really? A woman is not forbidden to her husband unless there is kinoi, unless there is warning, stira, and there is seclusion, uke maisa shahaya, like the maisa that happened between David HaMelech and Bathsheba. So says the Gemara, the only time Rav Elazar says that there's an emanos is not just to walk into Bezin and say, you're usher to me, has to have kinoi and stira. You have to warn her, and this is the way every site is created, and then we have to have eidim that they had yicha, that they were secluded. But the mere coming in and saying that she is usher should not be enough. Says the Mara back 1 second. Says the Mara, what are you talking about? The story of David HaMelech and Bathsheba wasn't kini and stira at all. There wasn't a warning and there wasn't seclusion. Number one. Furthermore, what's going on over there? Was Bathsheba usher to a husband novel? Of course not. So what are you saying at all? Says, actually not novel, to Uriah, her husband, to Uriah, Rashi says, because if that would have been the case, she would have been usher la'ilam. Answers the Gemara, Halai Kasha Achi Kamar. A woman is only forbidden to her husband if there was an act within the parsha regarding something like Kinu Yistira, Mimaisa Shahaya, that we learn from the story of David and Bathsheba. Because there was not, they were not forbidden, and that is what the Gemara wants to bring out from the story of Maisa and Bathsheba. But ask the Gemara still, Mikomakam Kasha, Kina and Stira in, Pesach B'Suach Lai. We're back to square one. It's only via Kina and Stira. So how could Rav Elazar say, by saying Pesach B'Suach, he's believed to make his wife forbidden to him? Says the Gemara back, Kinu Stira in, Eidim Lai. What do you mean? Something has to give. It can't be that the only way to make a woman forbidden is via Kina and Stira being a warning and seclusion. Because if that's true, you're going to tell me good old-fashioned Eidim don't have any believability. Can't be. You know what this Bryce that we're quoting from Laza, this is what it must be. Number one, a woman is not forbidden to her husband with a singular aid, elabishne Eidim. Vekino yustira afilu beirachanami. That's the chiddush. There was a novelty said over about kino yustira, about seclusion and warning. What was that novelty? The novelty was that normally 1 aid is not enough to make a woman forbidden to her husband, but if it's via kino yustira, then 1 aid is going to be enough. And now Pesach Basuach Ishnei Eidim Dami, and the husband coming into Bezin and saying, I found my wife to be a Pesach Basuach, I found her to be open, not like a basula, that is a kin that is similar to Shnei Eidim. And that is what we reconcile the two statements of Rav Elazar. Asks the Gemara, what is the reason why the story with David and Bathsheba, why were they not forbidden? Answer number one, because over there, it was an Einis. Number two, as we turn over to Tes Amud Beis, a very famous Gemara. Why was David and Bathsheba? Why was Bathsheba not usher to her husband Uriah? Anyone who went out to a war with David HaMelech wrote his wife a get, wrote his wife a get al tanai d'chsev v'sachicha tifkoid, as the pasuk says, and look at your brother l'shalom for a peace v'saravtam dikach, and take their aruba. Explains the Gemara, my v'saravtam dikach. What does it mean? Take the aravtem. Tani Rav Yosef Arma Rav Ben Elu Beina. The matters that are between him and her, referring to the kedushin, and that is where we see that he used to write a get al tanai. So the reason why Uriah is not going to be forbidden, because indeed he wrote a get to his wife Bathsheba, and that is the reason why. This act, is the Rashi over here says on the second line, Rashi says that they would write the get mehayoim from today if there is death in battle. Now, getting to the Gemara, let's go back. We started off today with Rav Elazar. What did Rav Elazar say? If you said, I found an opening, I found her not to be a basula, you have an amanas to make her forbidden to you. Amar Abaya, I have a right, Rav Elazar. Basula, and it says the Amar Avi, a basula, daf beis, it's married on a Wednesday. The Yom Arvi'in, Yom Chamishi Loi. Why should not get married on Thursday? My taima, why not on Thursday? You know why? We spoke about this in Daf Beis. The reason why they don't want to get married on Thursday, because we don't want it to calm down. If they have to wait from Thursday all the way to Monday, we're nervous the husband is going to calm down. Now the Gemara articulates that which we spoke about in Daf Beis. Ulamai. What are we nervous about? That he's going to calm down and he's not going to end up giving her a ksuba? Neisavla. So what's the problem? The problem is, let him give it to her. What's the issue over here? Meaning, if he's going to calm down and he's not going to give it to, not going to get divorced right now. Okay, so when he gets divorced later, he'll give her the ksuba. What's the problem? You know what the problem is? They might be forbidden. She might have been mizaneh, and it's pesach l'suach, and you're not going to live together. So we're nervous that if they get married on a Thursday, they don't go to bed until Monday. What are we nervous about? We're nervous they might be a forbidden union over here. She might have been mizaneh. She might have had illicit relations after the erusin. What's the husband saying? The husband's coming in and saying, I found my wife not to be a psula. So we have a clear raya from the Mishnah that the case of Pesach L'Suach, the husband has a believability, and that's the whole reason and the whole enactment to get married on a Wednesday so that he'll go to Bezdin Thursday morning and not have to wait till Monday. Answers the Gemara, not necessarily is that the case. The Katayin Tainas Tamim, I can tell you that the Mishnah is talking about nothing to do with Pesach L'Suach like Rav Elazar taught us. But rather, showing that he came in and he said, I did not find blood, I did not find the dam basulim. So Abaye tried to bring a right to Rav Elazar from our Mishnah, but nothing doing. Now we're going to conclude today with Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, a similar din. Ha'imar Pesach Basuach Matzasi. So Rav Elazar said, if someone says Pesach Basuach, excuse me, what's his namanis? His namanis is to make his wife forbidden. Shavya nafshei chaticha di yisura Rashi and Amar Aleph explained, and Rashi and Amar Aleph explained further, but he has no namanis for monetary reasons. He would have to give her a ksuba. Over here on Testament Bay, he says Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, no. Ne'eman la'hafsida ksubasa. He's believed to make his wife lose her ksuba. Amar Rav Yosef Maika Mashlani Tanina. We already learned this in the Mishnah. What do we learn in the Mishnah? If someone eats by his father-in-law's house in Yehuda after Erusin Shlai Beidim without Eidim, then he's not allowed to make a Tainas Besulim. Why? Because in Yehuda they had an interesting Hanaga, an interesting Minhag, that they would have yichud, and therefore we're nervous that if the husband and wife, they're not husband and wife yet, they only had erusin, but if they had yichud, we're nervous that they slept together. So if later on after Nisuin the husband comes in and says, wait, my wife was not a basula, we say, wait, you know why? Because you slept with her. So says the Gemara in Yehuda, you will not be able to have a tainas besulim. Explains the Gemara now, 5 lines from the bottom. Only in Yehuda you can have this taina. What's the obvious implication? But in a place called Galil, where they were not miyachid, we do not have to suspect that the husband and wife slept together before they're nisuin, that the husband would be able to claim. Ulamai, what are we discussing? Ila asur love. If we're discussing that the husband has a claim that maybe my wife was mizaneh and now she's forbidden to me, Yehuda my love. Why does he not believe in Yehuda? Meaning, it's true that he might have been the one to sleep with her, but if the husband is suspectful that there might have been someone else, then what? Then they are indeed forbidden. It must be the husband is coming to make her lose her ksuba. So says the Gemara, and what is the husband claiming? My love, the Katayin Taina is Pesach L'Suach, and therefore says the Gemara, Raya to Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, that when someone says Pesach L'Suach B'Sasi, you're never allowed to see the Ksubasa. For the fact that the Brisa said that in Yehuda, you're not believed. But Raya is that elsewhere in Galil, you are believed. What are you believed? When he said Pesach L'Suach, seemingly you're believed to see the Ksubasa. Why? Because if the whole case was talking about to make her usher, it should even be believed in Yehuda. Answers the Gemara, it's the Raya. Again, just like we refuted the Raya of Abaya, it's a case we could be talking about that he said there was no dam, and therefore we do not have necessarily a Raya to this din of Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, just like we did not have the Raya to din of Rav Elazar. So to sum up today's daf, we had two opinions about when a husband comes in to say Pesach L'Suach, Rav Elazar that says Neman La'Isra Alav, Shavya Nashech Chaticha D'Yisura. Abaya tried to bring a Raya which was refuted. Rav Yehuda Amar where Shmuel said, Pesach Basuach Lemon Lafsida Kesubasa. Rav Yosef tried to bring a raya which was refuted. We'll pick it up from Daf Yomi in the next year.